Well, I think the other thing with podcasting, just to, for any of the independent podcasters that are listening to this, just understand what you actually want. There's no difference between 100 downloads for an episode or 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000. There's no difference if you don't have a clear path to something like monetization, or if you want to ultimately sell it to a network, and if you don't have a clear goal, like I need to get to this number because I need this kind of listenership regularly because, and this kind of engagement because. If you don't have that, don't try to pay for growth. Just have fun with it and grow your podcast organically, and that's all it needs to be. It doesn't need thousands of downloads. It just needs some people listening to it that love what you're doing. And then and also don't take it personally. Like, try to understand what's happening. If you see your numbers declining, don't just look at it like, I think people are just listening to it less. There's a reason. Maybe shorten your episodes. Try shortening your episodes. Try, talking about something else. Maybe get rid of the ads that you're putting right in the beginning of the freaking episode. Try things, and don't take it personally. It just, you're building. You're have a podcast because you want people to listen. So build it for them. Don't, it's not for you.
I like that. Yeah, and I like iterating, doing different things. I like too how you said, figure out. You're kind of like, in my mind right now, I'm like a data guy, or like, figure out like why do you want to get to X, or like why do you need Y to bring you to Z? Like what is the mission? And I think that's helpful for me too. I feel like I've been thinking more about that. It's like, well, why do I want to grow? Like, what am I trying to achieve? Is it monetization? Is it to drive people to like an ebook, or is it to whatever it is? That's great advice there. Let me ask you a couple just like industry questions. Like what, sure. Like audio versus video first, what do you consume more of when it comes to podcasts and or content? And then what do you think of video for podcasts?
I am in the probably minority when I say that I don't think video is podcasting. So sorry. I think video is freaking video.
I'm with you on that. Yeah. I feel like I used to have a hard stance on that, and now I've been coming around a little bit to the video. I mean, I do release this as video. Just for YouTube, like discoverability, they're owned by Google. But it's interesting. I would love to hear like your thoughts. Like, no wrong opinion.
In my opinion, or at least the way that I view podcasting, it's audio. It's an audio product that you go out and listen to. And if I'm watching a video, that's a video cast or a video. It's just a video. Web videos. Exactly. It's not a podcast, in my opinion. And that's fine. You can have both. They both can exist. They could be exactly the same content. But I'm either consuming your podcast or I'm consuming your video. But if I'm consuming your video, I'm not consuming your podcast. I'm consuming your video, in my opinion. That said, I watch videos. That's like how I consume content. I prefer videos. I like music on audio. I actually like music videos still. I'm an MTV generation. I still love music videos. They don't make very many good ones anymore, but I still do love them. I definitely personally consume video more. I do have some podcasts I really like listening to, and those I'll listen to obviously on audio. But I mean, like Joe Rogan, I enjoy Joe Rogan, and I'll sit there for 2-3 hours and watch the video.
I don't know if I've ever listened to a whole one in one sitting with Rogan. Definitely listen. Like even today, I was scrolling through like the guests, like depending on I like the conspiracy people, but I also like when he just has his comedian friends on. I'm big on like the comedy podcast just because like it's just nice to take a break and like turn my brain off and listen to something funny. Okay. Yeah. So, So do you think like people should be creating podcasts specifically with video in mind, or should they record the video and verbatim like strip the audio and release that? Do you think they should be like two different types of content?
It depends on what like your vertical is and how you're presenting that content, right? So like some content,
I like how that's always like your thing. It's like, well, why are you doing that, and what do you hope to achieve from it?
Yeah. Everyone's looking for a magic bullet. Like what's the one way I can do everything? But it's not. doesn't not really applicable. Yeah, I think you just need to understand like the kind of content. If it doesn't make sense for audio only, then obviously produce different audio for that, or find a different way to put it together so that it makes sense for audio, like creative editing or whatever it happens to be. But to your question of like, should you be thinking video first or audio first? I think it boils down to the question we asked before: why are you making this, and what do you hope to achieve from it? So if ultimately you want to get sponsors and advertisers, and you want to make a whole bunch of money that way, go ahead, get video and audio, do video and audio, do social media as well, get a freaking newsletter, do that, and go sell sponsors on impressions, not overall across all channels. We have all this the right audience for you on our social channel, which is highly engaged, and our Facebook group, which is highly engaged, and our newsletter, which has 17,000 people with a 60% open rate and a 3.2% click-through rate. And then we have our podcast, which averages 2,172 downloads per episode, and our 47% consumption rate or whatever. Just have that entire package and go sell a sponsorship. CPM advertising or for monetization is for the greater part complete crap. Loading up your podcast with like 17 ads or 8 ads or whatever might sound like a great idea. I know there are studies that say that consumers don't mind listening to ads. I'm sorry, every fucking consumer does not want to listen to ads. There's not a single consumer that's like, I can't wait to hear the fucking ads in this podcast. So if you're able to do this with a sponsorship and not CPM like DAI advertising, or if you're stick to host read ads because it's a little bit more real if you're going to go that direction. And sponsorship is fantastic over like CPM type stuff that you'd be doing otherwise, because it crosses all the channels and you get to really control how that stuff is presented. And you make way more money. You make way more money with a sponsorship.
Yeah, I think the whole looking at it, like you said, including the newsletter, social, we can get you X numbers across these different things in the whole package. I think if we're seeing more of that, I think just like, the audio host read CPM, unless your show is like massive, like you're not going to make that much money unless, go ahead.
I have a wake up call. So if you want to make money with your podcast, you have a business now. And I think that's important to put that in your head. If you're ultimately want to make money with your podcast, that's why you're building a podcast, so you can make money. You want to have a little bit more financial freedom. You want to have more freedom in your life. You want to quit your job. You want to lower your hours at your job, whatever it is. And you just want to focus on podcasting, and you want that to be your thing. You want to make money in podcasting. Remember that to make money, you have to think about it like a business now. So, if you don't know the business side of it, start learning the business side. Like, it's not just about producing good content. You need to know the number one thing people will tell me when I tell them go out and get sponsorships, right? Is are there companies that do that for you? Like, no, go freaking pick up the phone or send an email or go on LinkedIn and find these companies, find the people, reach out to them, tell them what awesome product you have. You have only a couple hundred or 1,000 listeners. No problem. Let them know that they're super engaged. Make sure you have some type of conversation with your audience, so that you can show that they're actually a real engaged audience and real people and all that kind of stuff. But if you're able to show that and you're in a niche, you could still make a ton of money on your podcast with a sponsorship, but you're not going to make it if you're not making those calls or making sending those emails and having those conversations. You don't need to be a sales professional to do this. You just need to do it.
100%. I think, you got to reach out, find people that are specific to like kind of, your genre, your niche, what you're doing. And you'd be surprised. Even if your audience is on the smaller side, like people are willing to work with, like, if it's a really focused thing, and their company is going to resonate with your listeners because it's very specific. Chances are I don't know, chances are, but you'd be surprised probably at people responding saying yes. I've even had people like Rode. I reached out to Rode to try to sponsor, and they're like, "No, we can't do that, but we'll send you this microphone." And I was like, "Oh,
that's what Shure does. That's where this came from."
yeah, dude. So you never know. Like, you'll get stuff, or some other. I have like an on-air sign here. Another company was like, we'll give you a recording light for the door, like a red light, so people don't open the door. They know you're live." And hell, you might be able to sell, a package for $1,000 a month, even if you only have a couple hundred downloads per episode, because it's so specific. But like you said, you got to reach out. And I've noticed too on LinkedIn, I've had success with doing it via LinkedIn rather than email. But I don't do like the whole asshole pitch thing. I make it very like casual. And a lot of times these companies have someone like in their title that's like it says like partnerships for influencers or community partnerships. And the partnership people, that's their job to like, partner with creatives or YouTubers or podcasters, whatever. So
and you can actually, like Magellan, I think does this, and there's a bunch of other companies out there that do it, but I think Magellan's like probably the biggest, where they'll show you based on shows in a genre or a specific show, here's all the advertisers that have advertised on that show. And it's really valuable because these are people that are spending on other podcasts. That said, if you're a smaller podcast looking for sponsorship, maybe avoid those and go after those. Go after someone direct that makes more sense for your show. That might be interested in something a little bit more. The people who are advertising in all the other shows, they have it down to a science with like CPM and all that. They know exactly where it needs to back into. But if you approach somebody new, you might have a better chance at a better sponsorship deal.
100%. I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on, and this is just a fun question, like I like to get people's point of view on like short form video clips, like Instagram, TikTok for podcast growth. Like in my opinion, that doesn't really drive downloads. It might drive more awareness. But what are your thoughts on that?
I think it drives people to watch your podcast if they're consuming a video content. And great example, I didn't know who Theo Von was until I saw all of his shorts, and eventually I'm like, follow this guy. This guy's funny. This guy's hilarious. And Matt Rife and a whole bunch of other people like Sam Morrell, I think his name is Morrell. I didn't know. Yeah, I know who any of these people were until I saw their shorts, and then eventually enough shorts in, I'm like, okay, this guy's funny. It's not just like a one-off. And then I went and searched for this person, and end up now whenever they have new stuff, and they're part of my algorithm now too, which is great. But my point being, I've never once gone to a podcast app looking for them. Never. I saw them in video form in a short, and I went to go watch them in video form. And now this is me. I'm sure like, Edison Research or other research companies out there, are doing a deeper dive on like the greater population and can tell you a little bit more about like, behavior on that front. But, from a logic perspective and from just personal experience, that's how I consume content and like how I discover new content.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. Like I might see them, and if I see it enough, maybe I'll go follow them or I'll go watch them on YouTube. But maybe I've once or twice was like, okay, I'm going to listen to their podcast. So then, but it's a big journey for the listener because it's like you got to close Instagram, then you got to open Spotify or Apple. You got to try to remember what their spelling is or their name of their podcast, type that in, then find an episode. It's such like a long journey. That's why. It's just kind of when people talk about like using video clips to grow your podcast, it's like it might grow your Instagram or your TikTok, but I don't know that those people are going to become podcast followers.
The caveat to that, I would imagine, is that just like in sales, sales is like 7 to 10 touch points equals a sales conversation, right? So it takes, you 7 to 10 times to be in front, whether you're sending a message on LinkedIn or you're sending an email or you see them at a conference or whatever it is. The school of thought is it takes 7 to 10 touch points of any kind to ultimately have that first sales conversation, right? Similarly, I imagine if your budgets are big enough, like if you're a small independent podcaster, it makes no sense. But if your budgets are big enough, you're able to get in front of the same person on multiple channels. And it's some of them it's just a branding exercise. It's not necessarily tying directly back to a direct listen or a direct follower or whatever. I think there could be value in that, but only with larger budgets. I think the amount of time it would take to produce a lot of this stuff and put it out there. If you're able to automate, I think like Headliner and a bunch of others like do stuff like that. I think everybody's doing that type of stuff now. And if it's like seamless, like I think a couple of the hosting platforms like Buzzsprout, etc. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, but I think
Buzzsprout does have a built-in thing.
Yeah, exactly. So if it's seamless and built into the platform, I mean, why not use it? I mean, it's not going to hurt you, right? It's just, get your content out there. Great. It might not convert, but it is generating
awareness,
impressions and awareness. Exactly. It's out
impression
there.
Aware. Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's kind of the same thing. There's just so much pressure to put out all these fucking video clips. It's like, all right, guys, like, I guess I got to put some video clips out, but it's just like, it's just funny how that works. But
the video clips themselves, are you tying them back to your videos, or are you tying them back to your audio, or you're not tying them back to anything?
Honestly, I don't really have a great social media strategy. I just kind of pull clips to throw them up there to kind of stay relevant and see, people would have like 3,000 followers on Instagram. But honestly, like you said, I don't know why I'm doing it or what I hope to get. I just kind of throw stuff up and see what sticks. But I mean, ultimately, I probably should have a better strategy. But
don't be afraid to ask for what you want. So like when you get to that point, like find a classy way of including it in your shorts and just tell people what you want right in the short without like shoving it in their face. But if they don't know what you want, if they like what you're doing and they're like, all right, well, I'll support this guy. If there's no call to action there, if there's nothing telling them this is what you actually want, they're not going to do it. They're just going to scroll on. But if there's something there, they like what they see, they might be like, oh yeah, I'll support them.
Yeah. And, and you can in stories link to stuff. So I guess I'd probably do need to start like linking once in a while to something with like you said, a casual. Would love for you to check this out, guys, if you've been enjoying the clips or whatever it may be.
Always be testing. Always be testing.
Always be testing, dude. Testing those YouTube thumbnails, AB. Got to start testing with the emails too, like the email marketing.
Everything.
I know that's a big thing. I don't do that. I send newsletters, but I need to testing. Yeah. It seems like everyone's talking about testing. I guess that's how you hone in on what works, right?
I mean, you never stop. Like, it's, A, B, C, D, E, F, G test always. And, and what works today doesn't necessarily work next week. So, understanding that is really important. I mean, even programmatic strategies for MowPod Boost or, anything else that we're running, they're not the same month over month, or sometimes even week over week or campaign over campaign. For the same show, because it might be shifting. As we get into football season, a show about football is going to be the strategy is going to be very different in the draft than in the season, or leading to the Super Bowl is going to be very different. So it's just things to think about.
I love how you said football season's coming. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, well, I got my fantasy league, man. I gotta win.
It is coming.
The draft is coming up. I gotta do it. I gotta win this time. I won second place last time. It was my first time playing ever, and this is the second. I'm pretty excited. We'll see. Well, I'm 8th out of 10 picks, so we'll see.
Oh, you guys are drafting early. I'm in a league that it's probably been like 6 or 7 years, but we draft usually like kind of close to the start of the season, like late August. I've won before. I've won twice actually, but then it seems like if I don't win or come in like second or something, then it's like I'm on like last. It's like
it just like deflates you completely in the season. You're like, I don't care anymore.
Yeah. But last question before we go, Mike, and this is kind of a fun one, but I guess because I'm a little bit tired of people without kids, because I just had my second daughter. I'm a girl dad, a 2-year-old and just over a 1-month-year-old. But how do you manage having a kid, running a business, doing entrepreneurial stuff, running a podcast? Because I'm kind of sick of all these, like this hustle culture. I'm not taking advice anymore from people that don't have kids, I think, when it comes to like hustling and like entrepreneurship. And if they don't have kids, it's like, if you don't have kids, you have all the time in the world. You could, and especially if you're not married or something too, you could dedicate your entire life to whatever your business or your goal is. But so piggybacking on that, like, what is your advice, and like, what do you think of that?
So this is personal opinion. Obviously, like, everyone has their own lives and they run their own lives however they want. So I'm not telling anyone how to run their life. But personally, my kids and family come first, always, no matter what. I never. I bring my kids to school in the morning and I pick them up. My wife does sometimes too, but I like to be there, and I still walk my daughter, 11 years old, to like at least where she walks to school. Like I kind of walk her out, and we talk on the way there. There's sporting events, like my son does soccer, my daughter does swimming and dodgeball, and they both do gymnastics, and I'm there watching every single time without fail. To me, being part of their lives is more important than any amount of money you could possibly give me or any deal that we could possibly close. So I make time to do those things. And then outside of that, I have my time that I work. Everyone in my family knows this is when daddy is focused on just work. I actually have a home office where I'm talking to you now, and I have an office in a co-working space near here. Our entire company is remote. We have 15 employees, and we've been remote since before it was cool. So there's no central office or anything like that, which is, I think, an advantage. If you have to go into an office, it changes what your schedule looks like a little bit, because you have set hours in an office. But yeah, as far as getting everything done, it just comes down to priorities and making sure that if you're not organized, you have someone that you're working with that helps you stay organized. Organization is everything. Everything. Just understanding that here are the things that need to get done. Here's what's most important, and just checking those boxes off. It can be really easy especially as a solo founder, like when you're early on, and there's just you and there's nobody else, or even if you have a couple like employees, maybe or early on you have like people overseas, and they're just VAs and stuff like that, which is a really common thing nowadays. I never went that route, but it's really common, and it can get really lonely, and it can be really difficult to stay motivated when things aren't going the way that you're hoping. And my advice in that to that is go out and talk to people. Whenever I'm feeling like completely deflated, or like I just oh my God, I have all this stuff. Where do I even start? Or like, well, what should I do? Like, I don't even, or like, is it worth it? Or whatever, right? When you have those thoughts, and you always do, every founder does. Alex Lieberman just talked about it for Morning Brew, and they exited for $75 million. But, he was just talking about how he felt like the whole imposter syndrome thing. And it's a very normal thing. I would say just talk to people. Like I have a previous partner that I call all the time. I'm lucky enough to have a great co-founder and our CRO, Chase. I literally call him all the time with ideas, thoughts, like feelings, whatever it happens to be. And I have other people that up until this point, we just back and forth. We'll either be texting or quick phone calls. And it's just like, here's where I'm at, here's what I'm thinking, and you just get perspective. They don't have to know shit about your business. They don't have to know. It's just talk through everything. If you just sit around and stay inside your own head, you'll never get anything done.
Dude, I love that. And when you were talking about your kids, like, yeah, that's what I aspire to be be super involved, drop them off at all their stuff, watch all the games. So my oldest daughter's 2, and so I'm getting there. I'm still kind of adjusting to it, and realizing that my time is like their time, and I gotta be careful how I divide things. And if it's getting late, it's probably better to just stop working and go be with the family, put the kids to bed. But it's been a little bit of a challenge adjustment, at least. But yeah, that's definitely a goal. Love that. I love what you said about talking to people, because I feel like during COVID, well, everyone got kind of fucked up during COVID, but but you're right. It just feels better to talk to them, to either to vent, to ask for advice, or even just to talk about like regular like friend stuff. It's just good. It kind of gets you out of your own head. And I agree. I think that as solo founders, just whatever, the work from home culture, it's good to whether it is still like remote or a phone call, or to like get out, it's super important.
And for anyone that feels like they're not good at talking to people, they don't know how to approach that. Like, well, what do I talk about? Just remember this, that every person you talk to loves talking about themselves. Everyone loves to talk about themselves. So don't make that conversation about you. Make it about them, and then your stuff will come out of it. And it works every time.
Yeah, no, 100%. I do that with my wife's friends' husbands. Sometimes I'm like, oh, just start talking about like what they're getting into.
I'm not interested in my wife's friends' husbands ever. They think it's going to be like this perfect thing because their wives are friends. And I'm like, hey, bud.
It depends. It depends.
What you doing?
You'll bond with some of them more than others, but dude. One last thing came to me. I was going to wrap this up, but what is the podcasting world? What's the scene like in Japan? Like, are they straight up in Japanese? Like the podcasts, are they in English? Like what's it like over there? Is there even like a podcast world?
Yeah, there's quite a big scene. The problem with Asia right now and podcasting is not a lack of listenership and not a lack of podcasts. And to your question, I mean, there's a bunch in English. Most of them are in Japanese, but in Japan specifically, and there's companies like Otonal and others that are like kind of driving the space right now over here in audio. But in Asia specifically, because we're trying to expand out here, the biggest problem is there is no monetization or very little monetization. So advertisers in these regions aren't spending on audio advertising. It's just not a thing. It's not like they're not commonly doing that. They're doing like the line advertising or WeChat advertising, or they're doing display or digital display or out of home, or whatever. They're doing everything other than audio advertising. So it's not like a normal thing here. I think it's
probably right?
It's definitely a growing market, and we're starting to see more of that come out. So that's why we're exploring it. But I think that's the biggest challenge. So if like you're a podcaster in one of these regions, I guarantee you're feeling that pain. Like, look, I have all these listeners. Why can't I make money? That's why. Go after those sponsorships. Don't go after the traditional model. Go after direct sponsorships. But again, I guess not again. For the first time in Asia, I have no idea how all that works on the advertising front. I've never reached out to a Japanese company to go get a sponsorship. So I have no experience with that in any way, shape, or form. I do have friends at Otonal, and I'm hoping to learn a lot more about it. I've only been here for 2 years, and I plan on knowing as much as I can, in the next couple.
Dude, that's interesting. I don't know anything about that, but I'm sure eventually, those pieces will start to fit together. Hopefully people make some money, advertising, things getting more and more popular, and hopefully MowPod get roots in Japan. That'd be sick. Well, dude, speaking of family, I better get back to them. It's getting a little bit late over here, but tell the good people where they could find you, plug away your channels, what you want to plug, and
I'll only plug MowPod Boost. So it's boost.mowpod, MOWPOD.com. Try it. See if you like it. Tell me, share your feedback with me, or anyone on our team. Just there's an email on there. And ultimately, if you have questions about the space or questions about your podcast or just want to rap, you heard I love talking, so don't hesitate to reach out. You don't have to spend any money with me to chat, and we'd be more than happy to help you on your podcasting journey. That's it.
Sweet, man. Well, Mike, thank you for coming on the show.
No, thank you. Rock on. Podcast. Haven.